They say the most dangerous neighbors are not the ones who shout, but the ones who watch in silence. That true corruption begins not with a curse, but with a blessing that was never offered. A smiling face over a fence, a shared meal, a welcome that feels just a little too eager. They invite you into the community. They never tell you that the community has been dead for 100 years, and you are the sacrament meant to bring it back. This is not a story about witchcraft. This is a story about a harvest. About a family who built their dream home on soil that had been waiting patiently to be fed. Family, gather close. This is the Dread Codex. And our story begins not with a spell, but with a deed, and the hungry things written into the fine print. My name is Eleanor. I do not trust the kindness of strangers. I check the foundations of any house I enter. This is why. In the fall of 2012, my father, Robert Shaw, bought 12 acres of wooded land outside Millfield, West Virginia, a place of mist-hung hills and silent whitewashed churches. We were a family unraveling after my grandmother's passing. My father saw that land as salvation, a fresh start. The realtor, a man named Henderson with a smile that never reached his eyes, named a price so low it felt like a mistake. A steal, he said, tapping the survey map. Previous owners lost their taste for country living. Left in a hurry. It's waiting for a good family. A whole family. The first sign was the stones. Not local bedrock. Smooth, river-polished stones, dark as dried blood, arranged in a perfect circle at the tree line. They were cold. A deep, sucking cold that clung to the skin, even in the August sun. We dismissed it. Kids, hippies, pioneer nonsense. Our new neighbors sealed our fate. The Millers. Jeremiah was a tall, raw-boned man who spoke in proverbs. His wife, Ruth, had eyes the color of a frozen lake. They brought us a pie the first week construction started. Apple. It tasted of salt and copper. We look after our own here, Jeremiah said, his hand heavy on my father's shoulder. The land remembers a faithful family. Then the sickness began. It started with my father. Migraines that bent him double. Visions. He'd describe a woman in a dirt-stained dress, standing among the stones, beckoning. He'd wake coughing, his pillow speckled with a fine black grit like powdered soil. Our dog Duke would stand at the back door and whimper for hours. One morning we found him, just empty, as if something had sucked the life out and left the shell. We were not being haunted. We were being prepared. The house had a corner, the northeast one pointing at the stone circle. The plaster there would never dry. It wept a thin, viscous fluid that smelled of turned earth and rot. No dehumidifier could touch it. One night, grief for Duke and fear for my father sharpened into a rage. I pressed my palm against the wet wall. "What do you want?" I hissed. Silence. Then, a soft wet pop. A handprint, small and delicate, formed in the plaster from the inside, pushing outward against my own. I ran. Spent the night in my car, shaking. The next day, a friend who studied Appalachian folklore visited. She stepped onto the porch, went pale, and refused to enter. "Ellie," she whispered, "this isn't a haunting. It's a cycle. The land here isn't cursed. It's digestive. Get out." But we were broke. Anchored by my father's stubborn dream. We stayed. The end began when my father's visions bled into daylight, He'd stare out the kitchen window, trembling. "She's in the garden, Ellie. Ruth Miller. But her face, it's smooth. Like clay. She's smiling. She's calling me son, it broke my mother." She packed a bag and left. I was alone with him. Desperate, I went to the county archives. A tired clerk handed me a microfiche reel. The land was deeded to the Miller Hollow Covenant, a 19th century sect led by a preacher named Hezekiah Miller. They believed in earth baptism, purifying the soul by returning the living body directly to the soil, not burial. Absorption. The sect vanished around 1890. Official record, cholera. Local legend, Hezekiah performed his final earth baptism on his entire living congregation. They were never found. Jeremiah and Ruth Miller, direct descendants. I drove to their farmhouse to confront them. It was empty, not abandoned, evacuated. On the kitchen table, laid out with terrible care, 3 empty plates, 3 empty glasses, and a single smooth river stone on each plate. A setting for guests. I found an old Pentecostal preacher, his face a roadmap of wrinkles and fervor. "The Millers aren't practicing magic, child," he rasped. "They're tending. That circle is an altar. The land is thin there. Hezekiah's flock, their souls didn't move on. They became part of the soil. Hungry. The Miller's duty is to feed them. A family is the most potent offering. You don't curse the new neighbors. You welcome them. You make them family, so the family below can consume them whole." He gave me a vial of salt and a prayer. "Sprinkle it on the stones. Break the circle. Then run. Do not look back." I went to the circle at dusk. The stones hummed, a frequency I felt in my teeth. The air was thick, sweet with loam and decay. I began sprinkling the salt, chanting the prayer. "By the living blood, by the risen word, I break the pact of earth and unbind the waiting grave." From the circle's center, the soil bulged. Then split. A pale, smooth hand, sculpted from packed clay and root, thrust upward. Another. A head emerged, featureless, shaped like a woman's, dripping soil. It turned toward me. I ran. I grabbed my catatonic father and fled. We left everything. I thought the distance was enough. But harvests are patient. My father never spoke again. He lives in a home, flinching at the sight of bare soil. My mother, she came back. Now she gardens obsessively, her hands always in the dirt. Yesterday, I heard her whispering to the roses, in Jeremiah Miller's voice. And I. Last night, my new apartment was silent. Then, a sound from the potted fern in the corner, a housewarming gift from the kindly old woman downstairs. A soft, rhythmic pat-pat-pat, like dirt being patted down on a grave. A scent seeped from its soil, turned earth, rotten leaves, and the coppery tang of that old salt and copper apple pie. Then a voice, woven from my father's lost whispers and my mother's new gardening hum, spoke from the dark. "The table is set, daughter. The family is gathered. The earth is always hungry." This is the story of Miller Hollow. It is not a witch story. It is a harvest. The most profound evil does not poison the well. It offers you the water. It twists faith into farming, community into consumption, and welcome into a last, slow supper. So listen closely, family. If you are ever offered land that feels too generous, too eager for your roots, if the cold comes not from the wind, but from the very ground, if you feel the patient rooting gaze of something that believes you belong to it, run. Some places are not haunted by those who died there, but by the land that learned to eat. And some blessings are not gifts but grace said over a meal. If you have a story that haunts you, send it to contact.thedreadcodex@gmail.com. Your truth becomes our tale. Your likes and comments keep these stories alive. Until next time, may your path be lit. May your faith be your own. Good night.